So we're going to continue recording.
You have the sillies today. You are so funny. Okay.
Okay, here we go. Hi, and welcome to Sacred. This is our third episode of Sacred Womb Talks, and I'm Mama Tutu. This is our offering to the community from YEWAS, Rites of Passage. The reason why we're doing it, it is our offering, since we cannot do Sacred Not Secret, which is our where we have intergenerational education between the mothers in our community, our aunties, where we teach girls about their bodies and becoming a woman. So we're bringing it to this platform. We're going to use the gift that Auntie Corona has given us, and we're using Zoom. And so today we're talking about intimacy and beauty as tools for wellness and self-mastery. Again, we believe that information should come from our elders, from trusted women in our lives, even our fathers, rather than out in the streets. So we want to give it to you from aunties, from mothers who care and love our girls. And so I've invited Rachel Harris, my sister, to join us and to talk about this topic. And then I'm going to ask our two participants, our two guests, to introduce themselves. But first, Rachel, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Rachel Harris, and I consider myself a pleasure activist. And I usually work with women around my age, but I know there's just such powerful lessons to be had as a younger woman and girl. And I wish I would have been educated around pleasure and intimacy much earlier, but I guess my master class happened for me when I was going through my cancer journey. And I really got to observe how pleasure and intimacy and beauty are tools for wellness and healing. And also I was able to just really kind of do away with many misconceptions that I still held before like my health journey. And I was able to clear up a lot of things for myself. And so I've been sharing that ever since in a lot of different ways. So let's just jump in.
Let's
just jump in. One of the first things that sounds really provocative about the title of this talk, or anytime people say pleasure and intimacy, or even beauty, people's minds go to a really physical place, and maybe what they've seen on TV, seen in music videos, etc. And we really go to a really physical, like sexual place. And so that's like kind of where my re-education around beauty and intimacy and pleasure began. I think that I heard some really wonderful wisdom recently that I've heard again, but we've all heard this idea of, don't let someone make you mad. Don't give that power to make you angry to somebody else. Don't give that control of yourself over to another person. And I thought that was great. I've heard that a lot, and I thought it is really applicable to conversations around intimacy and pleasure, because the power to like become like really happy, the power to experience pleasure belongs to us. It is our gift. So it is not something, I want to keep my gifts. I don't know about y'all. Just like on a holiday or my birthday, people want to give me gifts and I really enjoy them. I really love them. I don't want to give my gifts away to another person. I think that's a critical first piece of re-education around pleasure and intimacy. That this is a very personal gift that we give to ourselves, and it comes from within. And so we can, with information and experience, share our gifts if we so choose. But that's the thing, we would have to choose it. That's important, to make an actual affirmative choice in any aspect of our life, really, as opposed to being led or, taking, remnants of whatever we would like instead of being able to choose. And so I think that's really important, that we don't look outside of ourselves to be given pleasure or to receive pleasure. It's actually something that is cultivated from within. And if in choice we decide to choose, we can. So I think that's really important. If you look at pleasure as something that is cultivated from within, you are always in a position of power in your life. But also, I think another important question is, how do you even recognize what pleasure is? How do you even really recognize that? How do you recognize intimacy? What does that, right? Like, what is that?
Especially if you don't, like how, and before we go on, I just wanted to, if you just unmute yourself really quick, Mubeenah, introduce yourself. She's representing the youth, the voice of the youth today. She's our honorary YEWAS like mentor, big sister. Why am I introducing you?
I know that. Okay, you did it for me. Hi, greetings. I'm Mubeenah, like you said. I'm 19. And yeah, I'm here to be a part of the conversations that help us grow and understand our wounds and our womanhood. So yeah.
Thank you. And then we have, I'm not going to introduce you, sis, but please introduce yourself, live from Philly. Can't hear you, sis. Oh, there you go. Uh-oh, we can't hear you, sis.
Those are some beautiful earrings too, Folami. Those are gorgeous.
She was like, I was trying to be quiet today. I can't hear you for some reason. Okay, some reason I can't hear you, sis Folami, but can you hear her?
She looks really good in orange.
She looks glorious.
Earrings.
Right. So maybe when you, I don't know if you have to go back in and come back and so we can hear you, but I'm going to ask you again to introduce yourself when your sound comes back. So, so you were saying, Rachel, that how do you know what pleasure is? And I was thinking if you've never.
Right. So, and this is really important, right? Because pleasure is not exclusively sexual, right? Like it's not. Right. And so if that's the case, then we should be able to recognize it. So one of the things, like one of the, I've done some research. I've asked a lot of elders, and some of my little synthesis of a lot of things is that, well, there are a couple aspects. One, a lot of people will I don't know if you've heard the term like pleasure seeking. Pleasure seeking activities, pleasure seeking people. This is kind of interesting because pleasure is not something that you should be seeking as like an escape. Pleasure shouldn't be something you should be, trying to find to escape any aspect of your life. Actually, true pleasure, like absolute, like true pleasure, should make you feel more like yourself, more natural, more authentic, more powerful, more creative. It should be revitalizing. You should feel energized from true pleasure creating activities in your life. These are activities that you could potentially lose time in because you find yourself so present, so at attention, so curious, so interested. So for example, it could be, some people love art and they might sit down and maybe lose time because they're just drawing and sketching and drawing and sketching, or they're dancing. And maybe for some of us, if we're if we're dancing, we could lose time because we just feel so natural and so just happy and energized. And that's when we're that's when we're experiencing pleasure. Maybe it's, you know, playing with our kids or playing with siblings or just being around family. And if that family barbecue felt like it could have just gone on all weekend because it just felt so good to be around your cousins and your aunties, like that's real pleasure.
Right.
And those experiences in your life actually have a physiological effect on your body. So, for example, when I was diagnosed with cancer, I had an amazing example of my own mother who also had been diagnosed with cancer years earlier, but was still doing all of the things she was really passionate about. My mom is like a humanitarian and loves her nonprofit work, and she never stopped. She's still going, and she's over 80. And so I really took note of that. My mom never slowed down. Now, if she had a job she hated, maybe she would have, but she loved her job. She loved going to the mountains every summer, and she kept doing it. So I processed that, and I started to look for things that I always wanted to try and always wanted to do, and things that from my childhood that I really, really liked, things that gave me true pleasure. So when I was young, I really loved to horseback ride. And I didn't have horses or anything, but my mom and I, we would go on vacations to like national parks and go camping. And a lot of times there was like some type of horseback riding nearby. And so I loved doing that. And so when I was diagnosed with cancer, I started taking horseback riding lessons again. I also was like, before I was diagnosed, I worked as an attorney in a film and movie studio, a film and television studio. And I was like, you know what? I don't like pushing all this paper. I want to be one of the creative meetings where they're talking about story ideas and who they might want to cast. I want to do that. That sounds real fun. So I went to film school while I was in cancer treatment. I say this because, well, I used to do workshops for women with cancer. That's a whole other thing. But I say this because what was I doing? I was engaging in cultivating my own pleasure. And I was able to see healing effects in my body, just indulging in my own pleasure. And none of those activities were sexual in nature, not at all. None of those activities really required another human being, right? Because I was writing, I was thinking about my life and writing scenes and dialogue.
Right.
I hear you.
You know what?
Wanting to jump in, Asatu?
I'm sorry, I was waiting to jump in because you know why? Because I can relate. I was actually talking to this about Mubeenah about how I spent a lot of my youth and why I somewhat felt like awkward because, you know, I'm not gonna say my friends were fast, and yes, I also had like a spiritual background behind it, but I had so much, my passion was dancing. I was dancing since I was 4, and every day I went to, like, after school, while in school, I was dancing. I went to dance lessons. You know, I was like athletic, but you know, and my parents, that's all they had to say. Your grades drop, guess what you don't get to do. And so up until 12th grade, I danced. And so then I also wonder, because I didn't also have a lot of other kind of energy. I wasn't seeking, like, I wasn't really, so what if brother man wasn't studying me? Because I wasn't really studying you that much, because I had an outlet. I had my own form of pleasure. Outside, the light went on. That's what I was thinking. Like, why wasn't I like, you know, I could have easily been so boy crazy and over the top, but I wasn't. I wasn't, because I had something, I had a community of other my dance sisters. I had something that I look forward to that really made me feel so good, like on every level. And so I like, if you
I've
can
heard
replace,
this.
if you can replace this dance, if you can replace this dance,
Right. Well, I heard things like, tell me if you ever heard something like this, and Folami can give us a thumbs up if she's ever heard something like this, where, with regard to boys, right? I would hear things like, always have something better to do. Like, don't ever let a boy think that you are waiting on him or that you need something from him or anything like that. So the guidance was always have something better to do. Even if you don't, act like you have something better to do. They don't know, right? Like, don't ever let a boy think you waiting on him, right? Always have something better to do. And that's, and this kind of goes to that, right? If you are really in tune with what brings you like real pleasure, that absolute in your gut joy and pleasure, you will always have something better to do. Because what is more, maybe I didn't say that part. There's nothing more important than how you feel and how you feel about yourself and how you feel about you. There's nothing more important than that. Nothing more important than that. And to the extent that you can feel really happy in your own life because you have identified things that really bring you pleasure, you will, well, one, you will be protected from so much, but it will, one of the things that protects you from is like truly feeling like alone. And I know that a lot of, you know, young women feel alone, and kind of leave space for someone to fill, someone or something outside of themselves. But the more that you can like really tap into, maybe it's student government, maybe it's a social cause, whatever it is, that when you give it your attention, it makes you feel powerful, makes you feel just that joy in your bones. Right. It's really important that we know those things. And then another thing I wanted to talk about was just again, this idea that intimacy, because we kind of talked about pleasure, but like, what is intimacy? So again, this is another, like, these words are used and thrown around all the time. And a lot of times people think of intimacy as, again, being like your relationship with another person, like outside of you. And so I think, again, like that's down the road, but intimacy starts from within. Also, it starts from within out. And a wonderful description of intimacy is a willingness to be fully seen. That is true intimacy. And that is definitely something that should start with yourself in terms of how do you want to be seen in not just your life, but in the world? How do you want to show up? Do you want to show up confident? Do you want to show up joyful? Do you want to show up adventurous? Like, all of those things need to be cultivated from the inside out, because no one can give that to you. Like, and so that's something to know, like getting to know yourself. You can say you want to show up in the world in all of these ways, but where are you right now? You need to know that. You need to ask yourself. And this is the beginning of a relationship with yourself that will just deepen in time. And I promise you, a lot of grown women are learning to do this now because they didn't have the opportunity when they were younger, or no one stopped to give them their time, like to have this type of like education in their lives. So I assure you, Mubeenah, that these are topics that women keep turning over, like, and so you're really blessed to have Asatu like create this group and have this opportunity in like your young life to have this type of education. So again, like intimacy starts from within, and really understanding like who you want to be and where you're at now and what you would like to cultivate in your life. So if you know you want to show up as like a really like outgoing, courageous person, but you feel like a really shy, like insecure person, that is a signal that like there is something to discover about yourself. There is a place of like confidence to reach in yourself before we're allowed, you know, we should really begin to develop intimacy with another person. Does that make sense? That we should like, because if we don't really know ourselves and like where we're at, then how do we even know who's showing up to connect with another human being?
Right.
We don't even know that for ourselves, right? So that's important.
And you know, the old folks say, oh, I'm sorry, jumping in. the old folks, I do want Falami to introduce herself, but the old folks, like you've heard of like bringing your whole self to a relationship too, like bring in like 10%. And then it's a false self, because then I feel that's why some people enter relationships, especially as teens, tweens, and even young adults in college. You start to try to be who that person wants you to be. You can get caught up in, the you not being your authentic self, not feeling like, for example, you can't even wear your sweats. You feel like you have to put it on all the time. You can't ever be like really transparent with that person. It can start young, and like you said, there's a lot of women in their 50s, in their 60s, still not being able to let down their hair. I had a friend just tell me recently, she's her 11 years she has alopecia. He has never once seen her bald head, and I understand that's beautiful, but 11 years he has never seen, he doesn't even know, she thinks he doesn't know she has alopecia.
So that
And I'm
goes
like,
right to, I mean, that is such a literal example of
that is literal.
a lack of willingness to be fully seen, right? So that was signal to me that there is less than full intimacy there, because there's still an insecurity there. There's still like, that is not a willingness to be fully seen, right? And so if you kind of like take that apart, it's like, okay, well, what is it? Is it, do I not feel as beautiful? And the reason why I'm like on this is because I had to deal with this, right? With cancer and a bald head, all of it, right? I have scars, I have all this stuff going on physically. And it's really confronting to women for whom our beauty and our standards of beauty are seen as so important, and as like a gateway to being with another person. Like we have to be beautiful, and beauty means a certain thing. It means physical. It means what, all of this. But I even wrote my first scene, like my first like piece of work in film school about a young girl with cancer and being with a boy and my wig coming off. And like, could you imagine how embarrassing that would be? You trying to be cute and your whole wig come off. You done picked out your wig. You done combed out your wig. You done got this thing. You trying to be normal. You bump that cancer. I'm cute. I'm gonna be normal, and the wig come off. Like, oh my gosh, right? But that is so real. Like it's so real. No one has to have cancer to have like physical insecurities.
Right.
But my advice though is, until you can show up and just be willing to be fully seen as you are, then we're not ready to like involve another person like in our, you know what I mean? Like we have to really, and that's something that really has to be cultivated, that intimate relationship with ourselves. Like, can we show up for ourselves and just be fully loved and fully respected and, just fully encouraged and protected? Can we do that? Can we show up for ourselves in that way? And it's no shame. There's no shame if the answer to one of those questions is no. It just means that, okay, I have to work on my personal intimate relationship first, right? Like before we can even entertain sharing that gift of like my personal pleasure, or and connecting with someone. Like before I can share those gifts, I need to really have an intimate relationship with myself, a loving, intimate relationship with myself. And so part of that is like just the feelings of self-acceptance and self-love. And I mean radical self-acceptance. So if you have, you're a little chunky, love it. Okay, like maybe you're not like the number one student in your class. That's okay. Still be encouraged. If you can get to that place, now we can maybe entertain some next level questions, right? Because there's still other layers to this game, right? There's more things that we have to check in about. But that's like number one. Like, how are we feeling about ourselves? That's number one. And then when it comes to, I think, any type of like intimacy with another human being. And increasingly young girls are confronted with this at younger and younger and younger and younger ages, about like being physically intimate. And I think there's another completely threshold like space that we need to be at is like how good are we at taking inventory of our own bodies? And I mean, this is just like on like the most physical level. Like, do you know where every freckle on your own body is? If you have started your moon cycle, can you tell just by your physical changes in your body that your cycle is about 6 hours away? Because that is how in tune with the woman's body we can be. Like, we can know, oh, I usually go 28 days, but I can tell by how this back is feeling, it's coming in 25 days this month. Like, that is the level. And we need to be so in tune with our bodies and take such care and inventory of our bodies, so that we need to know, especially with physical intimacy, we need to be able to recognize any changes in our body, right? Because for a lot of us that are going to be, a lot of the YEWAS have the physical ability to carry a child. To say nothing of the mental capacity or like all of the responsibilities, but because your body that's walking the planet right now can physically carry a child, can physically contract diseases, it's another reason why we have to be the expert on our body. And we don't have to wait to be in medical school to know our body, right? Like, we have to know it, because we need to be able to recognize any changes at all, and especially any unintended consequences. We have to be able to recognize it. We have to be able to recognize it right away. And along those lines, we need to have a trusted person in our life that we can tell. We've got to identify, this is something that's very serious, that, these are one of the things we need to do on the front end. Have I identified someone in my life that if I have any unintended consequences, I could tell, and I hope that, for all of us, like in this community, that we're inviting our aunties to the calls, we're inviting mom to the call, we're inviting a big sister or a big cousin, maybe who hasn't participated, so they can really understand, where your heart is at, the types of things you're trying to learn, the type of woman that you're trying to become. And I just think that's really important. Wherever it is possible, I hope mothers and daughters are that just the tightest, most close, relationship. And these are and this is one of the reasons why, is that despite some of our best efforts, we feel really confident in ourselves and we know what brings us pleasure. And maybe we feel like we've decided we're at a place where we feel empowered to share some of our gifts. Unintended consequences still happen. And like moment of silence for unintended consequences. And so again, it's really important to identify a trusted woman that we can go to no matter what, right? And I would even say, I really encourage young women to have that kind of conversation with your trusted person beforehand. And it might sound like, I haven't even decided to be, physically active, or intimate with another person. But if I ever did, could I come to you? Could I talk to you if I had any unintended consequences? And maybe I would just need to say, like I have a safe word with my daughter, and when she needs to tell me something, and needs me to reserve any judgment and just needs me to listen and help her figure something out initially, she recognizes I got to be a mama, right? I got to be a mom, and her safety is number one. But this is an agreement we have where I can let some of my impulses take a back seat so I can just listen and get the information, right? And so we've had
I'm
that talk.
curious. What is the safety word? I'm sorry. No,
It's
I'm curious.
it's really hilarious. It's just potato chips.
Okay.
But I know, right? It was just silly. It was like it sounded like a great idea, and then when it came to the word, we couldn't come up with a good word. And I think she may have had Doritos or something. And it was like potato chips. But I know that if I'm in the kitchen making small talk, hey, hon, and she looks me in my eyeballs and says, potato chips, I know it's time for me to be quiet and start listening, because my daughter has something to tell me that she needs me to first just listen and support her with. Okay. And so go ahead.
Can I bring in Sister Folami and just because she's sitting there?
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Greetings, everyone. I'm really enjoying this. I really am.
Well, good.
And I was thinking about when Rachel was saying the things our grandparents told us, our older people. I remember my grandmother, when I was 12 years old, she told me this. I was on the porch, and they used to speak in parables, but they didn't tell you everything. She said, always remember in life, a fish don't need no umbrella. Now I'm 12 years old, and I'm taking a fish, no umbrella. I'm like, that's so over me. I didn't understand, but I'm gonna tell you, when I turned 18 years old, it just all the little parables they used to say to me, I knew. She was saying to me, a fish like a fool with an umbrella, a fish with an umbrella would hinder him and would kill her. So always remember, you're a fish with no umbrella. I guess that's what it means. That's what I interpreted to mean. You know, my understanding of it, when I turned 18, I would say, oh, a fish don't need no umbrella. She was
right. I love that. Like, no man is going to come and bestow your pleasure upon you. Like, I don't need no umbrella. Thank you. And, thank you very much. Like, I really like that. I really like that.
And I think with Rachel, one thing about Rachel, when she was saying her mother, this is one of the things too. I believe our mothers model self-care. Like, I remember my mother, she would always take baths. Like, to me, baths, that's something that's my kind of sacredness, my self-care, is when she would go in that bathroom, she would take a bath, and her mother would Rachel mom would go to the mountains. And I remember different elders in the community, which I see a little different, is that they did do self-care. When they got into a relationship or a marriage, it wasn't completely evolved around that man. They belonged to all kind of organizations. They hit Girl Scout groups. They hit things, and they had a balance. And I think sometimes we become helicopter parents. We don't get into the self-care sometimes the way we need to get into self-care, or even to do the things. They used to bop. They used to dance on the floor and be bopping and dancing. And, you don't even see sometimes the couples, they play pinochle. They had fun, and at nighttime, I color in the coloring book. Sometimes we play jacks. My daughter and us, we was playing jacks a couple weeks ago. Like, those are things that are, like you said, I have to have fun. You got to have fun, because just doing things and not having no fun, you're not living. You got to have fun. Just get them jacks and get the coloring books out. Go whatever makes you happy, or float your boat.
Wow.
You got to do things that make you happy.
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah. That's so good. And I look at that's to me, like, that self-care is what I mean when I talk about beauty, actually, as a wellness tool, is really self-care, because I'll look at things like art, or even if it's like the color of clothes I'm wearing, or just like you said, like, the fun and the joy, like, it's all, to me, it's all, like, it is all about self-care. And when I think the power behind it is that you have a developing awareness of how you can make yourself feel. So then it's like, okay, someone comes and makes you laugh and giggle. Okay, but that's nice, but it's not the best thing since sliced bread, because you know how to make yourself laugh and giggle. Like, you know how to have a good time. You really know how to take care of yourself. And that is why, you save so much confusion with what you think other people are doing for you, when you know how to, like, really show up in your life and have fun and surround yourself with the things that make you happy and make you smile. And then it's clear that you begin to perceive like your own power. That's a power. It's a gift. Yeah. And like, keep your gifts. Yeah. Keep them. Like, they're yours.
Right.
They were given to you. So I think that's really important. I think also, we were talking about like taking inventory and like when the call was just starting, I was talking about like preparing and like, what are the things in our lives that we prepare for? Usually if you're a student, you have some type of exam to prepare for, right? And you would study and you would probably not just show up on the day of an exam and be like, I'm about this exam life, let's do it. You know, like
Right. No.
that. You wouldn't get, if you were trying to be a successful student, that's probably not how you would show up, just on the day of, I'm about that exam life, right? So it's like physical intimacy is the same thing. Like, one day, you know, you may want to have children, you might be about that physical intimacy life one day, right? But just like we would prepare for anything else that we would want to be successful at, we would want to prepare. Part of that is like knowing your body and that physical inventory that you take, right? That's part of it. Part of it is identifying the trusted people in your life. One, to, you know, keep getting wisdom, but also a safe place where you can tell the 100% truth if you have unintended consequences. Like, that is really important. We can't ignore the fact that unintended consequences happen. That's why we don't weigh these decisions lightly, right? But I just think preparation is really important. And then depending on like where you're at in your life, like how old you are, if you're in a relationship, that guidance will get increasingly specific and helpful. And then I thought it was an important conversation to have about changing your mind. I just wanted to like begin to say out loud, you may think that you're ready and you have met someone in your life that, you know, is coming to the table as a full person and appreciates your independence and you being empowered. Maybe you've been in a committed relationship with this person for a long time. Heck, you know, and you thought, okay, well, I graduated from high school or I'm graduated from college and I'm feeling ready and I know my body. And then you show up for the day of that exam and you're like, I changed my mind. And that's okay.
And that's okay.
Like I say, if you are in the, you know, whatever stage of intimacy with another person, and at any point you change your mind, it's okay. And so the reason why it is so important to know yourself on the front end is because you need to know that if you change your mind, that you are going to have the courage to say something, to say that out loud.
Yeah.
Right? And you need to know that about yourself before. That's part of the preparation. And if you feel like, ooh, that would be really uncomfortable. What if I'm kissing a boy and we've talked about it because he's so respectful, you know, and wants to talk about my feelings and if I'm ready, and we had all those conversations and I said I was ready, or, you know, and then we started kissing and I liked it. But then I thought, well, I don't want anything else to happen, and, you know, and maybe I said I was willing to make out, but I changed my mind. It's okay. But if you feel like that would be too uncomfortable or embarrassing to say, okay, I don't want to kiss no more. If you feel like that would be too embarrassing, then don't do it. Because again, there's nothing more important than how you feel. Right. And it's okay. Like, there's no shame in being like, I would feel so uncomfortable that I would probably let a boy's hand slip up to my boob because I would be too embarrassed to be like, no. Right. Like, I changed my mind because I already said we talked about it, that I was ready to make out. Right. So how can I change my mind now?
Okay, I have to jump in there. Forgive me. You know why that's so important? That is so important because a lot of young women or girls, young women, well, my generation, you know, I love this conversation because we're trained. Some of us were trained or modeled for us to be people pleasers and to put everybody else's emotions first. And so not saying that I changed my, I changed my mind. It felt good. Like I thought in my mind, that this was going to be really romantical, and I thought this is what I wanted. But right now, I don't want this. That is hard. And so then you have those unintended consequences. First of all, unintended consequences, and we don't have to spell them out, but there could be many. But one of them could be engaging in before you're ready. I'm just going to say engaging in sexual intercourse before you're ready, and then feeling guilty about it. That's one unintended. Not having the protection that you need because you weren't prepared. Like Mama Rachel said, you didn't do your inventory. You didn't do your self-inventory. You weren't prepared. Or just doing it because he's a nice guy and I don't want to disappoint him, making it about the other person. Yeah. Because I want to make him happy. That is also, and you don't know how you're going to feel after the fact. Are you going to feel good about yourself? Is it going to turn into something you feel obligated to do over and over again? So now you're in a whole nother cycle of obligation. And so getting it right, like starting with that, really knowing yourself, just going back there. Yeah, I don't even think you should be engaging if you can't speak up for yourself and say, this is not what I want, this is what I want. Or if you don't feel you can do that, just like Rachel said, then I don't think you should, because it's so tricky. It's hormones, it's a lot of emotion on both ends. And so unless you feel like you could say, like, stop, nah, bruh, I changed my mind, or excuse me, this is not what I want, and feel confident even that person is not gonna, flip and do something unexpected, then so those are all the things you have to think about. You have to think about all of that, your safety, how you feel, your values over anyone's values, your peace of mind, your heart. Yeah, I wish someone had said these things to me. That's all I'm saying. And I wish I had the umbrella.
Mama Rachel was saying earlier, I had older friends, and I think back then the sisters, it's a certain kind of sister we really, really had. And they was telling me I had liked this guy, and he liked me, but I was really never boy crazy. And she was like, my old head, she was like, give reverence to your womb. I was like, give reverence. She was like, give reverence to your womb. She was like, don't walk the life out of nature. Don't be accessible. Don't be like 7-Eleven. Don't let nobody. I was like,
that's right.
Who's dropping? I sat under a lot of people that really kind of schooled me. I always found older sisters in the community that I kind of modeled behind, and they gave me a lot of words of wisdom and how to handle things. And quickly, I was military, and I was about 19 or 20 years old. And me and my girlfriends made a pact that we was going to travel the whole Far East for $135. I went by myself. They was like, oh, y'all Philly girls are crazy. And I don't know if you can see in the background, this is my furniture I bought from the Philippines at 19, 20 years old. I went by myself, and all my girlfriends told me they was in love and they had boyfriends, and I didn't have one. And I'm so glad. And when they look back now, I'm 56, they was like, girl, we wish we had went there with you. I went to the Philippines, Japan, Alaska, and China all by myself.
Whoa, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's dope.
Finding your pleasure, yes.
I remember the umbrella.
Yeah.
And giving reverence.
And you know what? You said something so real about give reverence to your womb, and like just taking it back to like, these womb talks in general, right? Like reverence to your womb. Like, do you know, Mubeenah, do you know that there were cultures where the women would flash the sea, like flash their womb, like flash to the sea when the men were going out to sea, and they would flash themselves at the ocean to protect all of them. Or when and in some cultures, if there was an attack, like if there was like an impending war and there was an impending attack, the women would flash themselves to the other, you know, people that were trying to attack, and they would often just, it would catch them unawares and they would run away. And I say this because there is example after example after example in ancient history where just the presence of a woman's womb could, you know, calm the seas and provide protection to sailors. It could ward off evil and attacks from invaders. Like, this is what whole societies believe. It's really just this modern era that has really like disrespected to such a degree like womanness and wombliness, right? But this is like, in every culture, like ancient cultures outside of this one we happen to be living in, there has been such reverence for the womb, and it's incredible life-altering power, right? And so I just think like if I had an ounce of that like real knowledge like in my bones, like you should be walking like with your chin up every single day. You are queens walking around mere mortals all the time. Like you should really feel like that. Always have something better to do, right? Because you do, right? Folami, if you in your bathtub taking care of your whole life, like that is so much better than waiting for some boy to text you back. As if, right? As if we would be waiting for that. No.
Yeah.
Right. We don't have time for all that.
Yeah, and it's like, I just feel like our young sisters are just like these amazing gems, like to be brought up by other women.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Definitely. To you know, and I think that's just the purpose of this, that we don't want we don't want you to be in your 40s trying to figure this out, even your 30s. It's too late. You have too much to do with your life. There's too much to see. There's this world, like Sister Folami was saying, and Sister Rachel said so beautifully, that there's so much to explore and see and feel and to develop yourself into. Like, you just get to decide and design your whole life into a life that is pleasurable. And so this is the purpose. She's gone, but she'll be back. The purpose of this Sacred Room Talks is just, you know, to offer, just to have the opportunity for young women.
Has that wisdom now. It's so important.
It's just so important.
Yeah.
You got Mama Asatu, and I'm telling you, take advantage, because I really had, when I had my older, we used to call them my older sisters, that just I sat at their feet and I drunk at their fountain, and it really, it saved me. Trust me, it saved me. It saved me so much heartache and pain that I seen other friends go through. I'm telling you, I always was seeking that wisdom and getting that insight. And it made me just sit back, and I was slow to move on a lot of things, but really, really kind of, you know, really helped me, you know.
Right.
And do what you enjoy doing too, little sis. Do it. Enjoy. I was at the gym today, and they was looking at me. They was probably over there talking about me and laughing at me, but I was in the corner dancing. After I did my workout, I felt like after I did all those sit-ups and
I know.
I owe it to myself I have to do something. Like, if I work out and it's hard and it's painful, if I go in the corner and dance, I love to dance. I'm going, and I don't care, nobody was looking at me. I put my headphones on, I had my jams on, and I just go in the corner. I sometimes go in the kitchen and I dance. I dance, and I can't dance like little Mama Tutu, but I got my own little thing. I'll be over there doing
dance, Folami, come on.
And that makes me feel really, really good to dance. I don't know, something about dancing makes me feel really good.
Yes.
It lifts my spirit up.
Right.
And I don't worry about what people say about me. I never really did. I would wear my hair, I wrap my hair, I do whatever I want to do. I don't let nobody, I never really cared how people think or felt about me. And I think early on I had a lot of confidence. And I think I came from me being with older people all the time and them telling me, and I listened to them. I made mistakes and didn't do all the right choices, but overall I can say, if I had to say a percentage, 80% of the time I listened to my elders.
Right.
maybe 85, and it saved me a whole lot of heartache and pain, and
Right.
that's
Yeah.
just, to clinics and all other kind of things.
Come on now. Come on now. Come on now. Yeah, umbrella. Fish doesn't need an umbrella. Bina, do you have anything you want to
Ask?
or just any comments that come to your mind?
Comment. I was just listening. I think I will. I do really appreciate the conversation in the way that this conversation is had. I think while like similar conversations happen in my like intimate journey of like becoming a woman, it's not always. Is
that Malik?
No, it's just somebody.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. I think it's beautiful to have a conversation that I feel like resonates to me and reaffirms like the direction in which I'm trying to go. Because a lot of times I think intimacy and pleasure, especially like, I'm coming out of high school, coming a woman, it's often sexual. And it's like, for me, I'm like, well, if finding the confidence in my journey and the choices that I'm making for myself, that and I am choosing abstinence, but then that a lot of times people are like, see that as devoid of intimacy and pleasure. And and I'm like, well, for myself, as I'm learning and as I'm being poured into me, that like everyone's really saying, the intimacy of myself and knowing myself and pleasure comes from many aspects, and learning how to generate that for yourself and find that for yourself and having an intimate relationship with yourself is, I think, really important, because it's really important to know yourself and to heal yourself so you can share yourself with other people. So I don't know, it was a really reaffirming conversation, and that I don't feel it's not alone in the conversation, because it is nice to surround yourself with people that think the same, or that I'm able to, for people, that this is a part of the empowering conversation of being a woman, is the choice and the centering of yourself, so you can enter those intimate spaces, when you're ready. So, yeah,
Right.
thank you all.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. I'm so happy that you joined us. So I think that's Rachel. Yeah. Hi, Rachel. I just asked Mubeenah. Mubeenah commented. She just gave us some feedback. And I'm grateful that she was, grateful, Mubeenah, that you're able to be here. I'm grateful, Sister Folami, and then Rachel. Y'all just made me think again why this is so important. And so this is going to be one of the things I'm going to recommend for the YEWAS moms to watch with their daughters. I'm actually going to send them the link to our discussion after I edit out the beginning, the crazy parts. So is there anything before we leave that you want to impart to the YEWAS? Actually, I think I'll have to listen. We're going to watch it on Saturday. That you want to impart or say to our girls or young women across,
Always remember the egg don't chase the sperm. The sperm chase that egg.
That's funny.
Yeah, wisdom in nature.
And Rachel, you have anything?
That true pleasure and intimacy should be life affirming and power affirming. And if you feel anything else than that, then you're not ready, and that's okay.
Right. Beautiful. And I'm just grateful. I'm gonna say, listen to what your aunties just told you. I'm gonna end on that note. I'm so grateful for this conversation, and we'll continue it. And so we'll be back next week talking about something. We'll see, and we'll see what that is. So I appreciate you. Have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you next week, hopefully. All
Good
right.
evening. Thank you all.
Greetings.
Bye, ladies.
Thank you.